young boy, trying to teach him to be a man and how to process his emotions and to be able to conduct himself on an everyday basis, to be able to be the best version of himself. So my name is Aaron. I'm a single dad. I've been a single dad now for about 3.5 years, from when my son was about 4. So the different dynamics that parents have is, especially in a nuclear family, um, obviously a mom and a dad have their roles in what they teach their children. So like usually the mom's more of the emotional support and dad's more of the disciplinary and the head of the house. And when you're a single parent, those two two roles kind of collide into one. So for a prime example, I think that there needs to be a strong base or a foundation that you give your child of love. They need to understand that you love them and that they're the most important thing to you. So an example for that is I make sure that every single day um, that I pick up my son, I give him a hug, I give him a kiss, I tell him I love him. And throughout the day, I'll just go by and uh, rub the top of his head or give him a hug or do anything like that. When he was younger, when he was like 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, we'd have wrestling matches, and like that's how I would show my affection. And that part really builds the bond of creating that loving, that nature part of it. Um, your child's gonna know you love them by your outwardly acts to them, and this gives them a good base of what love is and um, basically how you build your bond and how they start to trust you. So with that part being started, um, the part of creating an emotional stability in your child and give them that strong foundation, I learned pretty on early on. The hardest part about the ages from like 3 to 6 years old is that your kids experience a whole plethora of emotions that they don't know how to process. They don't really understand. When my ex and I separated, I would see certain types of outbursts from him when I would go pick him up. I would see him like hit or yell or scream or cry. And I think our children do these things based on what they believe the outcome from the parent is going to be. So a child thinks to themselves, "Oh, if I scream, if I cry, then I'm going to get X, or I'm going to get Z, or whatever." So they do those things to get the reaction out of the parent. So you need to be the gatekeeper of how they learn emotions and how they learn to express them. So when I started having my son on my own and having him over my house, um, the hardest parts were sometimes he would start to express emotions, and they would be like outbursts of anger. Um, like he would cry or he would refuse to do things. And in those times, I made sure that I never wanted to be the dad that was overly angry or overreactionary when it comes to parenting. So a little backstory on me: I didn't really have that positive male role model as a child. Um, my dad was there, but he wasn't present. He was kind of always off doing his own thing and not really giving me the love that I needed. So my philosophy on parenting as a dad is to be the parent I wish I would have had. So um, I have a very empathetic nature to myself where I care about other people and what they feel. Uh, so I try to be the parent I wish I would have had. So 9 times out of 10, when something is going wrong or there's something upset, I try to put myself in the situation of if I was in that same situation at that age when I was a kid, what did I not get and what would I have needed for myself to grow emotionally? And I try to do that. So I guess I guess one tactic I started out using was um, when when he was in kindergarten, I believe, they started doing like a color coded system for when they were feeling certain emotions. So there was like a red zone, a blue zone, a yellow zone, and a green zone. Um, Yellow zone was like they're confused or they don't know what's going on. Red is like they're sad, upset. Green is like they're happy, and blue is like they're feeling sick or tired. So this is a good area to start, especially if you have young kids, is identifying a color with a certain emotion. This will make communication a lot easier when you start having those actual conversations with your kids. So, like, I always want my son to have discipline. But again, I did never want to yell at him to get the point across. It was always I want him to be able to have the tools to to process emotions, to be able to move forward, to be able to um, take that individual experience on and move forward with it. So when he would do something wrong, I would mark the time. So basically, I would be like, "That's not okay," and then um, I would never just have him say sorry for lip service. It was always, "Why are you saying sorry?" And then, "Do you know why you're saying sorry?" And then I would kind of indicate to him when he made the error, what was wrong about it, and what the right path forward was after that. I didn't do this by yelling. I did this by just getting down, being very stern, looking him in the eyes, making him look me in the eyes. For a kid, that's more. It's really intimidating for them to have to be able to own the moment and not take their eyes off of you and be distracted. So um, again, I never want my son to not do things out of fear. My goal is to have him do things because he understands why it's wrong, what the effects of that wrong move could make, and then um, how it's just not the proper way to act. Um, so going back to the emotions. Uh, so basically, like here's the scenario. So um, I was at the museum with him, and we were there for a couple of hours. And I said we're at a certain exhibit for a certain amount of time, and I was like, "All right, bud, let's go." And he heard that word "let's go," and instead of processing as we're going on to the next exhibit, he took it as we're leaving the museum. So he started crying, and I like to I like to imagine that whatever reaction I give to him is going to be a lasting effect on how he moves forward in his becoming more aware of his emotions. So he started crying, and I was like, "Why are you crying?" And he's like, he couldn't answer. He wasn't really coherent what he was saying. And I was like, "Well, what what color are you feeling?" And he told me that he was feeling red. And I was like, "Well, why are you feeling red?" And he's like, "I don't know." And I was like, when I said "let's go," did you think that I was saying we're leaving? And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I never said that that's what we were doing." I was like, "You just assumed it, and then you became emotional because you thought that was going to be what was going to happen." I was like, "Next time you're feeling that thing, make sure you're verifying what the actual act is." So I was like, next time, or in this situation, I was like, I looked at him and I was like, "Ask me if we're leaving." And I had to say this a few more times, and he kept crying and he kept looking down, and I was like, "Just ask me if we're leaving." And he's like, "Are we leaving?" And I said, "No." I was like, "You didn't ask me, you didn't verify, you just kind of felt this way." And I was like, just so you know, for future reference, I was like, this kind of actions, acting this way, screaming, crying, being on the floor, these are not is not what's going to get you the result that you want. You may think that you're going to get it because you're acting a certain way and that you think that I just want to make you happy. I was like, but I want you to understand why things are the way they are. Um, and I was like, if you ask, you'd get a straight answer. You would know exactly what's happening, and you wouldn't be crying. So I took a little moment, and we walked away. And there was like a quiet room that had like toys that we could play with, and we discussed it. And we were like, I told him exactly what he needed to hear at that moment, and he was able to calm down because I reassured him that that there are ways of addressing his his frustrations in the real time. So that was a prime example of when I used the color system. Uh, Also, you need to be kind of aware of when they do tell you which emotion they're feeling to try to like dissect what is the root cause of what's causing that emotion. Um, so I think as parents, we want to know exactly what's wrong and we say, why? And then we get frustrated because they don't tell us exactly what we want to hear to fix it. So I kind of did like there's like the old system, like where like you're troubleshooting something and like there'll be like a diagram and it'll go, do you have a problem? Yes, no. And then like if you select yes and there's two more branches and then it says like if you feel this, is it this? And then there's like another diagram. So basically, I would just do yes, no questions. So like he'd be like, are you upset? Yes. Are you sad? Are you mad? Are you angry? Sad. Why are you sad? Or what's making you sad? Are you sad because of? And you kind of need to be aware of things around yourself too. So, are you sad because we are over here instead of over there? Are you sad because you want to be with somebody else or you want to be with this person? Are you sad because you wanted to do this and we're not doing that? Um, so when you learn to have that communication with them and you learn what is the root cause of what's making them upset, you can kind of cater the way you react and the way you act to them, and you can be more aware of the things that they like and the things that they don't like, um, and you can curtail the way you parent them with those things that you know now. So like there are certain times where he would get frustrated and upset, and he would tell me he's the color blue, which is or no, the color yellow, where he's like confused or bored. And I was like, okay, well, let's go play a game. Let's go play Legos. Let's go outside. Let's go to the park. Let's do something to entertain you. And by doing this, it allows them to feel like I can be around dad. I can be myself. He's gonna understand me, and I can be the best version of myself around him. Obviously, they're not saying that out loud, but subconsciously, that's what it's becoming. I have a tremendous relationship with my son because of those type of things. Being able to recognize those when he was younger has helped to progress to where he is now. Also, another thing to build emotional strength is I think as parents, and I see this a lot, is with technology, especially with like screen time. Like you go to the store or you go to a restaurant, and instead of parents like talking to their kids or playing with their kids or playing a game or doing something like that, the kids are their faces are stuffed in a phone. And I listened to one comedian, I can't remember what his name was, but he basically said, like, somebody had asked, like, a parenting question. And I said, do you want it easy now or do you want it easier later on? So, in my process, I want to make it harder at the moment in the beginning. So, like, well, especially for like a single dad. When I got my own home, we didn't exactly have a lot of money. So, uh, getting something like an iPad just wasn't um, a possibility. So like we did other things like playing, going outside, and experiencing the world and seeing all that stuff. So even though it was hard because he had an iPad at his mom's house and he was able to do that at his mom's house, it just wasn't possible in my house. So I had to find alternative things to entertain him to pass the time. um, so I never really had to deal with the outburst after that. And now that he's older, yeah, he likes playing video games. He likes being on the screens. But if I say, "Hey, bud, it's time to turn this off," "Hey, bud, not right now," he never pushes back on me because he knows that there's so much more fun things out in the real world than are inside that screen. Um, so that part again, early on, it's harder, but emotionally, you're building a foundation to have them understand the real world and that the real world is actually a pretty fun place. Even on car rides, like some people put their car or put their phone back there so their kid can watch it, and they have their face in the screen the whole entire time. When we're in the car, my son's always looking out the window. He's noticing things. He's asking questions about animals on the side of the road. He's asking questions about trees, about the clouds, about the sky. Basically anything you could think of that you would see in a car. That's what he focuses on, and it helps build a relationship between us because he's asking questions. I'm using my wisdom of things that I know, and then I'm teaching him in the moment. So another thing I want to talk on about emotional strength is you kind of need to be the example for your kids. Um, I think that vulnerability, uh, most people, especially from previous generations, they consider vulnerability as weakness. In my mind, I consider vulnerability as strength. And what I mean by that is to have it be weakness, it has to be like your overwhelming trait that you exhibit out in the real world. So, like, you're always emotionally down, you're always sad, you're always pushing your problems on other people. That's when it becomes a weakness. But a person that exudes strength, that does the right things, that takes care of their children, that takes care of their family, financially, physically, and is the kind of the head of where everybody can look, then that's a strength. But again, with the vulnerability part of it, so here's an example of me showing emotion in front of my son to let him know that it's okay to feel these things. So a couple months ago, my there was a death in the family, and my son's mother was emotional every day and crying. So one day, me and my son were driving home, and he's like, Dad, how come you never cry? And I was like, well, you've never seen me watch Avengers Endgame. Um, but no, kidding aside. So like a couple weeks ago, I recently got promoted in the army, and my son was at the my promotion ceremony, and I was going around giving my speech saying thank you to like my stepmom and my uncle and my son's mother and the people that have helped take care of my son. And when it got to my son, I didn't think I was going to have this emotional reaction, but I started to choke up the moment I looked at him, and like I started tearing up, and I couldn't get my words out because I started crying. And I did that because I basically told him that like he was my reason why I do everything I do. I go to work because of him. I'm in the military because of him, and I push myself to be the best version of myself for him. And I was very emotional in that moment, and for him to see his dad cry in front of a bunch of people in uniform, in front of other soldiers, it showed him that it's okay to cry because, like, again, my generation and prior, if you showed emotion, it was considered a weakness. Um, and I don't consider the ability to be vulnerable as a weakness. Again, it has to be well aimed, and it has to be for a certain reason, like a death or um, being emotional for being happy for somebody. Uh, you're able to show that and to have your kid be the best version of themselves because you provided that. um, you're basically you're basically their light tower. They look to you for an example. They look to you for guidance, and they see it's okay, and they see that you do all these other things, that you're able to be good at your job, that you're able to be a leader in the real world, that you can take tasks on and accomplish them. Um, but you can still show that vulnerability part of it and still be that strong person. So I think having our kids be able to witness that is important. I think the one things as parents and as dads, um, some like for my example, I didn't have a good childhood growing up, but I can learn from the things that I went through as wisdom to carry on to him so he can not endure those same things. Or if he does endure those things, that he has a knowledge base to be able to say, this is how I handle this. Um, but we can also make sure that we give our kids the things that we didn't get, and we can teach them what's right and wrong. And it's funny, like watching him interact with other kids. I can see the life lessons that I teach him, and I can see some of the ways he acts towards other people. Like he's become a very empathetic kid, but he's a very strong kid. He's always the leader of whatever group of kids he's with, but he's also able to be empathetic and humble and have humility, which is an incredible trait. So like all the kids want to be around him and he's like the leader. But if he sees somebody that doesn't have a toy, if he sees somebody that doesn't have something, he's the first kid that will go over and give his toy away to somebody that needs it. Um, and again, that's our responsibility as dads is uh, we don't know what we don't know until we know it. So those times where you want to be angry because they're acting a certain way and you teach them the right thing in the moment, you may think it has a very little impact, but what you say has serious weight in what your kids perceive. So give them a strong base, give them the knowledge, give them an example, show them what's right and wrong, and show them it's okay to have vulnerabilities at moments, and that if you do cry, that's it's not a bad thing, and that it's a sign of strength, and that you can still be somebody that's admired and loved by everybody, even if past generations would say that it's not. So that's just a little bit of what I went through, and how I raised my son to be a strong individual, and how I think that these building blocks I've given to him have built a good foundation to lead him into his teenage years and ultimately as an adult. So if you guys found this video to be helpful, for future content, it would help me to hear your stories. If you want to give me examples of how you've handled those situations, how you handle screen time, how you instill like how you teach your kids that what emotions are okay to feel. I'd love to hear your stories. Again, this is just to start a conversation. Any way I can help anybody, I would love to. So if you like this, please like, share, subscribe. I look forward to talking to you in the next video.